I'll introduce the three panelists one by one. You'll each start with your opening presentations, and then we'll have our conversation. Our panel is about Resolution 1325, which is one of the most important UN resolutions from 20 years ago, that talked about the role of women in peace and conflict resolution. And what we really want to highlight is how far has the world come in the last 20 years and what's left. So exactly the UN 75 goals, meaning what are the gaps we as society, as the world, still need to address, despite our best efforts. So we're going to start with Iris Martins, who's a European migrant woman living in France. She works as a European project management assistant for FISPE, a nonprofit organization. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And specifically that works for social integration for migrants in France. Go ahead, you can start with your opening remarks, and then I'll introduce the other two panelists when their turn comes. Thanks.
Thank you. So I just want to start to say thank you for being here today, everyone. So we cannot talk about democracy, women's rights, and peace in the world without speaking about gender equity. Gender equity, actually, it's a fundamental woman right that women have been fighting for decades, as all we know, and it's part of the DNA of the United States. But the situation is still far from what it should be. As we all know, one of the biggest issues in gender equity, it's about women's political all over the world. Even in democratic societies in which is legally demanded, gender discrimination occurs in politics. The 20th century was marked by many changes for women in politics, participation and leadership, as the example of the resolution 1325. But we know that women's participation in parliaments around the world has doubled also in the last 25 years to 1/4. But it's still less than 1/10 of states are led by women. This fact proves that this inequality is still very present. However, we cannot forget all the women who had fought for equal rights in history. And I can give you a really good example. We had a chance to participate. I cannot share my screen. We had a chance to participate in an European project co-funded by the European Commission for Citizens called the People's Parliament, Democracy, Women's Rights and Women Political Participation, where we remember and celebrate the 67 women elected in 1979 at the first elections in Euro Parliament by universal suffrage, with the aim to inspire new generations.